Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the February 15th, 2024 GTC Transportation Council Planning Committee meeting. My name is Scott Leathersich. I will be the chair of this committee and at-large member with Monroe County, and I'll be conducting the proceedings today. But first, I'd like to turn to Jim and what I call the rules of engagement for today's meeting.
Good morning. Thank you for coming or attending online. The meeting is being held in a hybrid format. We have some people in the meeting room here in downtown Rochester and others online. Members of the public are able to join us remotely as well. The meeting is open to the public. The audio and video are being recorded. They will be archived for viewing on our website later as people wish. Those that are members of the public that are attending remotely can do so by computer, mobile device, telephone. They don't have to be at a computer. And questions can be, or comments can be submitted via the chat on our publicinput.com platform, via email, text, recorded voice message, and there's even an opportunity during the public forum to connect an audio bridge, talk in real time. And there will be two opportunities on the agenda for those public comments. And as I mentioned, the video conference is being recorded and will be archived to the GTC website along with our meeting minutes. This slide just presents information for how the public is able to access on publicinput.com/GTC Planning Committee. The toll-free number that folks can reach us, 855-925-2801, and the code for this meeting is 8148. Again, people are able to leave recorded messages and comments via chat, via text. We try to make it as easy as possible. With that, we have the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Jim. At this time, I'd like to turn to Joe, and we would do the introductions and roll call.
Thank you, Scott. So we'll start out, Genesee County, Tim Hens.
Adams is here for Tim Hens.
Thanks, Laura. Livingston County, Angela Ellis.
Here.
Thank you. Monroe County Legislature. Ontario County, Bill Wright. Orleans County, John Papinetti.
John sent me a message a short time ago. He had a conflict come up that he's not able to make it.
Seneca County, Jill Henry. Wayne County, Kevin Rooney.
I'm here.
Thanks, Kevin. Wyoming County, Devin Blue. Yates County, Douglas Rappley. Next slide, please. Monroe County Executive, Tom Fries.
Here.
Monroe County Planning Board, Isha and Lynn.
Yeah.
Monroe County Supervisors Association. Monroe County at Large, Scott Leathersich.
Here.
And then David Lindsay. I believe he was on the line. City of Rochester Mayor, Rich Perrin.
Yep, attending remotely. I need to leave at about 10:30 or so for another meeting. Thanks.
Rochester City Council.
I'm sorry,
James
David
Smith.
Lindsay is here. I couldn't unmute my microphone, but.
Oh, that's okay, David. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Rochester City Council, James Smith. Rochester City Planning Commission, Kevin Kelly.
Present.
Rochester at Large, David Riley. Present. Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, Richard Sutherland. Present. Rochester Genesee Regional Transportation Authority, Miguel Velasquez.
Eric Farr representing.
Empire State Development Corporation, Stephen Golding. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. New York State Department of Transportation, Chris Reeve.
Bill Kleinberg representing.
And New York State Thruway Authority, John Bozer. And then Federal Aviation Administration, Evelyn Martinez. Federal Highway Administration, Ben Fisher. And Federal Transit Administration, Jennifer Terry. That's the roll call, Scott.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And then also I'd like introductions for those who are not part of the roll call here in the room. Starting with, I'll start with
Sure. Jody Bennix with Genesee Transportation Council.
Thank you.
Again, Joe Bavenzi, GTC staff.
Tim Stack, GTC staff.
Jenny Lowenstein, Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council.
Thank you.
Charlie Reek, GTC staff.
Lori Marr, Genesee Transportation Council.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate that. Next up is the public forum. Is there anyone who would like to comment to the committee before our proceedings today?
No.
No one here? Great. Not great.
Watching on public input, but then comment.
But
We do have about 7 people watching the meeting. So if anyone has any comments later in the meeting or would like to type a comment in the chat, we'll be monitoring that.
great, okay. Thank you, Lori. Next up is approval of minutes. We have the minutes from the January 11th, 2024 Planning Committee meeting. I would ask for a motion and a second. Again, our members participating online are welcome to move these actions as well. So looking for a motion.
I'll move it.
David, thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Rich, thank you. Again, in this process, we'll approve these by consensus, so I'll just check to see if there's anyone who is opposed. Anyone? First of all, any comments or revisions to the minutes that anyone may have noticed? Okay, hearing none, is there anyone opposed to approving these minutes? Hearing none, they are approved. Thank you. Next up, announcements and old business.
We don't have anything new to announce or anything of this. No.
Okay, any other agencies have any announcements or old business to bring forth today? No, okay. Brings us to our action items. We have a few under a Unified Planning Work Program. First one is recommendation to the GTC Board concerning adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 Unified Planning Work Program. And Jody is going to walk us through that.
Thanks, Scott. Just gonna go to the next slide. So as reported in January, the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, is the program of federally funded transportation planning activities to be undertaken by GTC staff, our member agencies, and other municipalities in the Genesee Finger Lakes region. So the fiscal year 2024-2025 UPWP will support planning activities beginning April 1st of this year and will end in March 31st of next year. So projects included in the current UPWP that are not complete as of March 31st of this year, 2024, will be rolled over into this new UPWP. So a full draft document was presented at the last meeting for your consideration and approval for a 30-day public review. This 30-day public review period was conducted from January 15th to February 14th. We use the publicinput.com platform. Since then, New York State and Maine office, their planning bureau, have sent in several editorial comments, and GTC staff had gone through the document again. We're just going to make a few editorial corrections in the UPWP. These edits are not going to create any technical changes to the draft program as was presented last time. Additionally, we have offered unsuccessful applicants debriefs. We typically do these after the board has approved the UPWP, just to make sure that there's no project changes between then and when the UPWP is official. So next slide. So at the time of the mailing, as of February 8th, GTC had not received any public comments. Since then, we've received 2 comments. One was from a resident. It was a general comment. They talked about supporting active transportation planning, using engineering to promote traffic calming, such as roundabouts. And they also encourage snow removal policies for sidewalks, trails, and bicycle routes. The comment did not reference any specific projects or tasks. We also received a letter from Reconnect Rochester. They typically do send a letter in for our UPWP. Again, they were supportive of our active transportation planning projects, such as the Town of Gates, Monroe County's active transportation implementation plan, and the City of Rochester's alleyway conversion. They also suggested some future studies related to reducing carbon emissions, a new east-west trail to complement the Genesee Riverway Trail, and mass transit options. So based on these comments, we're not recommending any changes to the UPWP as presented, but if you have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to answer it. And I also want to thank the UDC It's a lot of work to review all the applications and we spend a lot of time meeting. So if you're on the UDC, I greatly appreciate all the input you provided.
All right, thank you, Julie. Yes, UDC is, thank you for all the effort put into that to create this document. Any questions or comments for Jody? Okay, hearing none. Nice job, Jody. Thank you. Yep. No, I'm gonna do it right now. Okay. So now I'd like a motion to approve.
All right.
Rich Parent, thank you. A second? Tom Fries, thank you. Any additional comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone opposed to recommend this to the board for approval? Hearing none?
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Next up, we have the action concerning consideration of UPWP's project scope of work. That is task 8741, Regional Trails Initiative. And Charlie's gonna.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Pardon me, now it makes me a little.
I knew it. Okay.
Thank you. Genesee Transportation Council is initiating the fourth phase of their Regional Trails Initiative, RTI, spanning the entire 9-county region. The first 3 phases of the RTI occurred in 2002, 2004, and most recently in 2016. The RTI's overarching mission is to ensure a comprehensive trails inventory and identify best ways to enhance the regional trails network. This is a continuation of this objective. Historically, the initiative involves an existing conditions inventory, a demand analysis, and a public engagement process to identify proposed trail projects to add to the network. Final reports have been accompanied by a suite of trail network recommendations. This fourth update to the RTI will reflect the significant trail development that has occurred since the last Regional Trails Initiative in 2016. Since then, the region has experienced the completion of GTC-funded trail feasibility studies, other efforts to advance trail development in the region, and changes with respect to funding sources and design guidance. As such, the Regional Trails Initiative scope of work is articulated to have 3 primary objectives: to amend and revise network recommendations to reflect current trails and trail gaps within the network; 2, to expand trail project descriptions, identify next steps to progress trail projects, and add detail to future steps for each existing trail plan; 3, to simplify trail project prioritization with a focus on intermunicipality trails and regional hubs. One of the key objectives worth highlighting is the commitment to simplifying the trail recommendation process by developing a project prioritization framework. The 2016 Phase 3 Regional Trails Initiative yielded over 120 trail project recommendations. We recognize the importance of a strategic approach to the trail development process, from starting as a proposed idea and progressing through to a capital improvement project. The development of a prioritization framework will identify trail project elements that influence proposed trail development. The prioritization framework will help assess which proposed trails are best suited to focus further efforts and resources. Priority project fact sheets will be delivered for the top ranking recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Any questions or comments on Charlie's presentation?
Is this going to conduct by the GTC staff only, or would that have?
There'll be a steering committee, pretty wide scoped.
Yeah, we're gonna hire a consultant. Yeah, but it's we're gonna lead the project, so we'll be the lead agency on it, and we'll go through our RFP process and look for, I think we're gonna do a pretty broad steering committee, right, Charlie?
Yeah, it's pretty holistic. Lots of folks invited.
Okay, yeah, just seems like a lot if the GTC staff had to undertake this. Right.
Yeah, it is a significant effort, but again, it's building on previous efforts. Gosh, going back, the first one might have been 20 years ago.
Over, yeah.
And we've tried to continue to build and recognize the significant progress that our communities throughout the region have made in actually implementing projects. So each cycle seems a little bit different, but we can get more refined. And as Charlie said, the last cycle resulted in 150 recommendations. That's a lot to try to advance, so we're trying to get more focused this time around, and again coordinated with the project sponsors. We know, for example, Monroe County is progressing implementation of the active transportation plan. The city of Rochester just completed that significant effort and they're looking to implement. So we want to complement those efforts. And then wherever communities, smaller communities might help them, particularly when we identify the gaps in the network, we try to fill gaps.
It's wonderful. Yeah, look forward to the results. So updating our databases too.
Yeah.
That'll be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I would like to have a motion to approve this action.
Motion.
Tom, thank you. Second,
Kleinberg.
thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Okay, anyone opposed to moving this action along? Hearing none, it is approved. Thank you. All right, get to work, Charlie. Okay, next up, we have 4 actions under recommendation to the GTC board concerning accepting reports as evidence of completion of UPWT tasks. If it's acceptable to this committee, we'll approve that, those 4 as a group after we've heard all 4 presentations. The first one up is the last mile or less site plan review for multimodal transportation. Jenny will be walking us through that.
All right, so with this project, the objective was to develop guides and provide associated training opportunities for municipalities to use during their site plan review process when considering active transportation trips. Next slide, please. So the background of this project really stems from the idea that often site plan review does not address the site details related to pedestrians or bicyclists. As you can see from this picture, a lot of people end up, waiting for their bus on the side of a road, not near good sidewalks, well-maintained sidewalks, or may not have good bus shelters and things like that. So the hope of this project is really to create accessible and well-balanced transportation options and walkable communities throughout the region, and to develop site plan review and approval processes that can address and accommodate all user groups and non-motorized forms of transportation. Next slide, please. All right, so the goals of the project were to help communities evaluate their current site plan review process, and also to help them ensure that it is supporting multimodal and pedestrian focused projects. And supporting communities, we can help them evaluate what they currently have on the ground and promote any recommendations on how to improve their site plan review process, and help them connect active transportation users to the front door of an establishment and make sure that the final steps of their journey are safe and direct. And again, to support municipal boards by providing materials and training opportunities. Next slide, please. So during this process, I sent out a survey to all 188 municipalities, directed primarily to code officers, planning board members, and other individuals who are directly involved in the site plan review process. We actually had really great turnout on this survey. I was really impressed. I think we had over 100 communities respond to the survey, so I was really impressed with that. So the questions on the survey were related to what elements are reviewed in your site plan review process. Does your site plan review require pedestrian connectivity and safety elements to be included? How many and what types of projects are reviewed? And does the site plan review process result in quality projects that are promoting walkability in your community? I also held a session specifically with Monroe County municipalities, which provided an opportunity for those municipalities to get together to discuss site plan review and learn from each other. They found out that many of them have very different site plan review processes, and that they don't get together enough to even discuss some of these challenges. And it provided an opportunity for GFL to learn how we can continue to support these municipalities, but also how we can provide more of these opportunities for communities to get together. How do we create forums for municipalities to just discuss these important topics? I believe about 10 communities participated in that event. And then during the local government workshop, I presented this project during the fall of 2023. And the purpose of this presentation was not only to review site plan review and what it is, but also provide the tools, resources, and examples of other things that should be included in site plan review and ways to update their processes. And the goal is to help municipal boards understand what best practices were, how to find them, and how GFL was there to help. There were about 25 people that attended that session with a lot of really great conversation. And that presentation is linked to GFL's website if anyone else would like to review that. Next slide, please. So there were several deliverables that came out of this, the biggest one being the guidebook that was created. The guidebook covers a lot of different topics, one being, what is good design? That chapter outlined the connection between street design and land use and the ability to enhance or hurt a community's aesthetic, historic, and environmental resources, as well as potentially enhancing or hurting safety. It also discussed there was also a chapter on the site plan review procedures. This chapter discussed the importance of site plan review, the different procedures that exist within the review process, and the potential outcomes. There was a chapter on best practices. This chapter was divided into 4 categories. So communication, standardization, performance, and accountability, and planning. Each of these categories described best practices and ways which communities can improve their site plan review process to actually look at the needs of pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as looking at what people in vehicles will need to move around, and really talked about the context of their community and the context of what is actually happening in the neighborhoods, and actually how to build projects that enhance the current context and the hoped context in the future. And then there was a chapter on resources. This section has a number of links to resources outside of the region, links to New York State training and technical support documents. And also there's a ton of links to what is currently happening within the 9-county region, what municipalities are actually doing these best practices right now that other communities could go to and be like, oh, Greece has really good site. I believe it was Greece had really good recommendations for what good design looks like in their community. So that was a really great resource, and other resources like that are linked right into the report. And then there's also an appendix, and the appendix shows a number of diagrams, examples, and documents, including applications for site plan approval, site plan review checklists, and lists of additional factors that could be added to the site plan review checklist, and also included complete streets elements that could be part of the site plan review process. So all in all, while we unfortunately were not able to work directly with a municipality to help them through their site plan review process to improve it, we were able to work with a number of communities just on a general basis in terms of informing them of, how to improve site plan review, getting municipalities together, especially the Monroe County municipalities, and continuing to support the work of better street design for all different road users. So, and again, that report is linked to our website, and also the presentation is linked to our website as well.
All right, very good. Yeah, you're right, the response, that's incredible.
I was flabbergasted, honestly. Yeah, I think it was 102 municipalities. Actually,
out of how many?
188.
Yeah. Wow.
I was blown away.
Yeah, definitely.
The hard part is that no municipality really stated that they wanted help, which was frustrating, but
yeah.
And he said they couldn't provide the direct assistance, and that wasn't because they weren't capable, it was because nobody took them up on the offer.
Correct. Right. We tried in several different opportunities to, there was a couple communities within the survey that did say they needed support. When I reached back out to them, it was crickets. So, and I know some communities believe Fairport is already looking at updating their processes. So there are communities that are thinking about this. So
good. Sounds like a very worthwhile effort. So nice.
One comment I want to add, what I really appreciate about this is that they were able to identify practices that are already occurring in the region as good examples. And so it's not like, some wild idea coming from somewhere else. This is our neighbors, this is nearby that people can, if they have doubt, they can actually go see. So,
Yeah, I think that was my goal is obviously other places are doing great things, but there are great things happening right here. And how do we encourage municipalities to continue to talk to each other and their neighbors to be like, oh, you're doing this really great practice. How do I take it home and make it useful right here in the region?
Right, good. Anyone have any questions or comments for Jenny?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to add a comment. I'm very excited about, this finished product because, Monroe County Planning Office, go into the 239 review, and we do be conscious to reminding the local municipal planning board when they're doing site plan review, they need to be conscious about public transit, bike and pedestrian safety through their review process. But I think with this document, we're able to link it and then provide them additional resource and support. And if, they would like to look out, they have a guide to help them to go through the process.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's so that would be very helpful for our process.
Yeah, I'd be happy to send that to you and talk
Yeah,
through that
we would
process for
just
sure.
put it in the link and
Yeah.
you can look through that.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Next up is the City of Rochester Downtown Sign Assessment project. And I think Joe's going to guide that one.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So yes, so this is the closeout for the City of Rochester Downtown Sign Assessment. The purpose of the project was to study the existing signage for I-490, Interloop Expressways, and the New York State touring routes throughout and surrounding the City of Rochester's downtown core. So as background, in recent years, there have been a number of redevelopment projects in the central city that have impacted traffic patterns. The last time signage was thoroughly looked at was back in the 1960s. And so the state and county DOTs thought the time was right to take a new look now. In terms of looking at the project looked at the reevaluation of the existing route signage in terms of its location and condition, and then where signs should be relocated as necessary. So on this slide, the map, go back to the previous slide, the map on the left is the routes that were looked at for this project, which were routes 15, 15A, 31, 33, 33A, 96, 383, and then New York bike route number 5. And then on the map on the right was the major traffic generators, which were identified, which included entertainment venues, parking garages, civic, government functions, and other key locations that would attract people in and out of the downtown core. So the next slide. This just gives you an overview of the kind of the overall planning process. So it was fairly straightforward, but just a lot of work. We had an inventory of current sign location and condition, about 1,600 individual signs in total. And fortunately, the city had a good database that we were able to use to update for this project. Again, we identified major traffic generators. And then we looked at recommended sign replacements, where based on the condition of signs, it made sense to switch them out. And also we looked at recommended sign relocations in terms of given, again, changes in traffic patterns where it made sense to relocate signs to make it easier for motorists, trucks to make their way through the city. And then we also considered the impact of 2 upcoming projects, the Interloop North reconstruction and the Broad Street Aqueduct project. And so the next slide, this simply is an image. This is an aerial image of a section of Route 15 by Strong Hospital and Mount Hope Cemetery, simply showing the inventory of current sign locations. This was the basis for our work. And then the next slide is an example of these maps were developed for each one of those routes I mentioned earlier. So this is just showing Route 15. Again, the potential location for signs. This is not guaranteed. I mean, there's future field work that have to be done for individual projects. But these maps will provide guidance for city, state, and county workers when they're looking at sign relocation. And then the next slide is, again, I mentioned earlier the Interloop North project. So we did take a look at the preferred street alignment or layout for the Interloop North project and identified, again, potential sign locations. These locations may change depending on if there are any changes to this network, but again, this gives us a sort of a starting point for considering sign locations. And same thing with the Broad Street Aqueduct project. You know, if that goes forward, then we looked at an alternate route for New York State Route 31 and where the signs would be located on that. So again, that wraps up my presentation. Just again, this report is useful. It provides a resource for, like I say, city, county, and state workers to use going forward for looking at the location of signs in and around the central city. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions that anyone has.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Any questions for Joe? Comments?
Just say thanks, Joe. This is a great resource for us.
Yeah.
Really on Interlake North.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, from folks I know, especially my age demographic, you know, I don't like going downtown because I don't know how to get around, you know. This is, I think, is something that really could improve those opportunities, you know. Can't use that excuse anyway. I don't know where to go to get there.
And, David expressed appreciation to Joe, but I do want to acknowledge this was New York State DOT that requested this. It just, for purposes of administering a contract, it's easier for GTC to move those contracts forward. But this was a NISDOT initiative, a little confusing by the title, but that's more the location than the lead agency.
Yes, thank you too, Joel.
Yeah, I will add the kumbaya moment and add my thanks. I'll note, you know, we spend a lot of money on planning, and it's nice when we can take the results of UPWP funded studies and actually implement. And so we now have our work cut out for us to find the funds to start implementing these improvements, and our traffic safety mobility office and I are already speaking about that. So we'll see what we can do. But again, thanks to GTC and the planning committee.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. That's a good point. It's always good to see the results of these plans actually become implemented and actually see them on the ground. So I agree with you. Okay, thank you. Up next is the Lakeville Corridor Strategic Plan, and Kelsey is going to guide us through that.
Yep, morning. I apologize if I cough. I've had this fun 30-day cough that's going around, and it's been a blast. So I'm still in it. But anyways, so the Lakeville Corridor Strategic Plan, this project was really to look at just over a mile stretch in the hamlet of Lakeville to improve the streetscape elements, including access management, the resiliency of the road with potential stormwater improvements, green infrastructure, and also to provide pedestrian bicycle accommodations. And looking at some of those key connections in the corridor, like a main intersection, Rochester Road, and how they function and how their safety is. Through working with the steering committee and public outreach in the first round, we came up with a list of goals for the project, and all the recommendations were in support of those goals. Those goals included protecting and promoting Canisius Lake. As you kind of drive through Lakeville right now, you could easily miss the lake, right? And it's a great asset that they have. It provides drinking water. It provides recreational opportunities, and it's a really important asset to the community. A goal was also to provide multimodal accommodations. Being a New York State DOT truck route, there is this perception of compromised safety from pedestrians and bicyclists without their own, you know, bicycle accommodations, sidewalks, and those multimodal infrastructure to support them. We also looked at improving intersection function and operations. I say that instead of safety because there wasn't a defined safety issue there from a collision analysis. It's more of a perceived one. So we looked at just how to improve the intersections, how they function, and if there's opportunities for gateways, landscaping, and improving the aesthetics of them as well as their function. Also, access management as you drive through the corridor. there's a lot of driveways that are the complete frontage of the properties. So we wanted to look at their access management policies and look for opportunities for driveway consolidation, reducing driveways to standard widths, and that would improve the aesthetics and safety for peds and bikes with reduced conflict points. And then also to create a sense of place, to really give Lakeville its character that it deserves and, you know, provide those amenities and aesthetics for the corridor. So what we went through is, you know, the standard procedure of doing an inventory and data collection. This, I would say, Livingston County and the area has a lot of really great studies and things that are going on. So to get in alignment with that, incorporate all of that as far as when it comes to the management of the lake, transportation connections. They have a lot going on that we brought into the inventory and tried to bring all of our needs and opportunities in alignment with those. We did the vision and needs, and we kind of went over that with the goals that we just went through. And then our recommendations included not just capital improvement projects, but some policy recommendations, looking at their zoning code and some opportunities for refining that to include some of the goals as far as stormwater management, more pedestrian friendly development and things like that. And then we came up with a strategy on how to do that, including funding sources, priorities based on feedback from the public and the steering committee. Okay. So some of the recommendations that we came up with, surprisingly to what I typically hear, a lot of the public and steering committee was so for roundabouts. So they were really into it at 2 of the intersections. There was a lot of support from that for the community. So we ended up recommending roundabouts, but then also some intersection upgrades, you know, due to the cost and the funding availability, since there isn't a safety problem to warrant the roundabouts being installed using highway safety funds. Excuse me. And then we recommended 2 main corridor projects along the corridor. One is we recommended to move forward with investigating the installation of a 2-way left turn lane, as well as dedicated shoulder space that bicyclists could be used and sidewalk on both sides. And then we also proposed a capital improvement project for the length of the corridor to not incorporate a 2-way left turn lane, but just to maintain 2 lanes in each direction, have that shoulder space, additional green space buffer for opportunity for streetscape amenities, landscaping, green infrastructure, and sidewalks on both sides. There was a lot of, I don't want to say indecisive, but you know, there was an agreement whether the 2-way left turn lane would be good or not good. So kind of left it needs to be further investigated, but you always, when you go through with design alternatives, need 2 options. So that could be brought through in design. As well as we looked at the different intersections, proposing upgrades and possibly roundabouts for those. Excuse me. So for services and programs, we recommended the wayfinding signage. Livingston County already did a wayfinding signage strategy and branding for some of the villages in the county. We also recommended that the hamlet look into that also and get part of that program so that they could help with that sense of place and provide opportunity for directing people to the important assets in the hamlet. We looked at a Share the Road campaign. A lot of feedback was that the driver behavior, especially in the summer months for visitors, isn't always conducive of sharing the road with pedestrians and bicyclists. So we thought it would be helpful, especially during those seasonal months when they have an influx of visitors, to make sure to remind people the rules of the road and that they're not just for vehicles. And then also to promote active transportation in future development, you know, to incorporate things like bicycle racks, you know, putting parking lots in the back instead of the front, and some of those recommendations to promote other modes of transportation. All right. And for policy and planning, we recommended a pedestrian overlay zone, being that this is a hamlet in a very walkable or the potential for a walkable community. We really wanted to foster business to implement sidewalks, have parking in the back, have lighting and landscaping. And not only that, this will help with their water quality also by reducing impervious area, helping protect the lake, and improving water quality and quantity that is coming from impervious areas. They have an access management policy. We looked at that and had some further recommendations how to fine tune that. And we also want them to work with other stakeholders in the area, excuse me, such as Livingston County and DOT, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page with their access management policies. And when future development and curb cuts are approved, that we be mindful of how many of those are along the hamlet to reduce conflict points. We also recommended that the town come update their design guidelines and standards. They're a little dated and they're very heavily focused on, I'll say more of like community or neighborhood development, really, and so that they come up with more design standards that are in alignment with the town. And then also a stronger stormwater management policy to further protect the lake and, have stronger policy on green infrastructure and the amount of impervious area during development. We had 3 public engagement sessions. I would say they were really well attended. I think the last one we had almost 100 people. We had a really strong steering committee on this project that really got the word out. And they were so supportive, and I think they were a huge part of the success to the amount of people who came to the meeting. The first one in March was more of an information session. The second one in July was a visioning session where we showed recommendations. We got feedback on more of the capital improvement projects, where we heard a lot about the roundabouts and how much people like them there. And then the third one was we had a lot of new attendees, so we actually had an overview of the project again, and then really focused more on the policy and some of the stormwater management pieces. And then we also had people kind of vote their preference on what capital improvement projects were most important to them in the community, so we could help prioritize that. And I guess that's it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Kelsey. It's enlightening to hear the positive reaction to roundabouts. Usually the first introduction of those are very negative. So,
I know. I was very surprised. So.
Good news.
I just wanted to inject a comment. When Town of Livonia first approached us on this, they had already identified capital funds for doing some sidewalk improvements, but they decided it made sense to take a step back and look at it holistically. The idea of the stormwater, resiliency type thing was still relatively new in the transportation conversation. And they came in and said, we want to look at this more comprehensively, and state DOT was on board with it, county was on board with it. It made a lot of sense in particularly the natural environment around there, the sensitive ecological environment, to look at this holistically. And we appreciate that the town, I think this is the first time that we've integrated the access management, the stormwater management, the resiliency, the multimodal traffic operations. I think this is the first one we put all those in the same plane.
Good.
Scott, Jim, can I comment?
Yes, please.
Well, I guess I just wanted to add, first off, thank you to GTC for funding the project, and certainly on behalf of the town and the county, we appreciate that. And Kelsey and her team did a really good job. Just to kind of echo both Jim's comments and Joel's comment about implementation. This is the first one that we've actually done as well that's kind of blended all of these different elements together. And we are actually actively working on trying to figure out how the recommendations can be incorporated into some of our other activities and other funding sources that we're taking a look at. The first example really is that this project is going to be dovetailed into the update that we're going to be working on for the Canisius Lake Watershed Management program. So that's kind of one example there. I think the recommendations kind of present themselves as a good list of complex projects along with some lower hanging fruit. So we hope to be able to kind of keep the energy going and work on implementing some of these items. And it was a very engaged group. They were very active. It's probably one of the most active ones we've seen for our projects that we've done. So we're very appreciative of everybody's support and DOT's patience and participation as well. So that was very good, and thank you.
Great, thank you, Angela. Appreciate that input. Sounds like a very successful effort, so.
Yes.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, nice job, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Last up in this group is the Village of Warsaw Active Transportation Plan. David is gonna walk us through that.
All right, thank you, everyone. Good morning. David Cruzy here with Passero. I'm not sure how I follow up that presentation. It sounds like
the bar is high.
Yes, kudos to all who worked on that one, and as well as the other projects that we've heard today. We work with Ingalls Planning and Design on this project, and a very engaged and active and passionate project advisory committee in the Village of Warsaw, Wyoming County Planning. James Bragg and Scott Gardner and Laura Hours from the village and the county were extremely fantastic individuals to really champion and spearhead this project. We had a lot of fun working on it. The project's genesis was really that it's a bit of an aging community, a youthful community as well. A lot of walking opportunities, a lot of school children walking to school. And there are some identified and separate senior oriented residential centers and facilities that need better connections to and from various services, particularly noting the area's county health system. And so the other genesis of this, of course, when talking with the community and James and his team, is that the intent was to develop a trail system, particularly leveraging some of the local assets that they have, namely the Warsaw Falls there. People are currently using that, using a bit of an ad hoc trail system to get out there, to take pictures, to enjoy it. It's a beautiful, wonderful natural asset that the community has. But how do you get there, and how does the entire community be connected to it in more of an inclusive way? So that was really how this idea started to come about, and then it just blossomed into more of an active transportation plan that's turned into. And so some of the objectives, of course, that you see on the screen here are building a more inclusive and connected network for all users, all ages and all abilities, and really trying to tap into what the community has to offer today, which is a very good existing infrastructure of sidewalks. We did note that there's certainly some maintenance improvements that are necessary. And sometimes, in these projects, perhaps it's not the big flashy recommendation that comes about. Sometimes it can be really, especially in today's day and age where funding and budgets are tighter, in a community that has a higher level of walking, that desires to be a walkable community, looking at things like maintenance and those policies and programs can be extremely critical and have somewhat of a low impact but a high value relationship to both the community members as well as the decision makers who are obviously looking to improve those facilities. And so in terms of some of the assessments that we did, we looked at, we performed a walkability assessment along the entire, some of the priority corridors here. We looked at the community's bicycle facilities through the lens of a level of traffic stress methodology. We identified and we heard early on about lighting, street lighting being somewhat of an issue. So we looked at some lighting locations, as well as did a comprehensive transportation analysis that looked at crossing locations, sidewalk locations, crash analysis. We did some traffic counts and intersection operation analyses to try and boil down to some key recommendations and key goals that we wanted to get out of the project. And through our engagement process, which I do want to just make mention again that the advisory committee on this was extremely diverse with a number of great perspectives on the project. It was really a comprehensive, full circle sort of assessment of what the community desires, what it wants to look like. So as part of the engagement process, 2 rounds of public engagement, as well as our advisory committee meetings, and we were very fortunate to attend a Taste of Warsaw event and got to set up shop there, rub elbows with a lot of the community's business owners, listen to some really great stories, and really just try to get the word out about our project. Ongoing at that time, and still today, the community is also updating their comprehensive plan. And so we got to post up with the team that's doing that project. And we were also in close coordination and contact with them throughout the process. Because one of the elements that we were looking at, of course, as part of this, the ATP, is what kind of land use and regulatory recommendations could come out that are more multimodal, very similar to what Jenny presented earlier. And so this project, we hope, it can be a chapter within the updated comprehensive plan to really provide that comprehensive transportation element, and as well as shed light on some of those land use and regulatory recommendations that they're going to be looking at as well. And so some of the findings that came out, if you want to go to the next slide, perhaps, maybe that's got some. Some of the findings that came out, we had a survey utilizing public input, and a really great tool for us and us consultants. I've been extremely appreciative of GTC offering this as an opportunity for us consultants to use. I think it really helps to drive up the engagement on these projects. And a big thanks to Lori on helping set up these project websites, and just using this platform to get a broader range of input. So, when it comes down to the really sort of big picture findings from here, walking and biking, people were really just wanting, better connections for sidewalks, better maintenance. They're looking for off-road paths, of course. We're looking for this multi-use trail system that was noted earlier, better lighting, better crossing conditions, and also looking at the policy side, better education, more programs, more encouragement, more enforcement of really what's out there today, but also to try and encourage a more multimodal network out there. On the biking side, again, on the trails, a more robust and just really a more just a new trail system to be in place. Signed routes, bike lanes where possible, wider shoulders, certainly more bike parking. There's a lack of it in the current downtown there. And so that obviously can be a deterrent for people. If they don't have bike parking, that's not going to encourage a lot of bicycle use. And so, and really the other aspect here is bike boulevards, developing that parallel system that we know that routes 19 and 20 are heavily trafficked. Not unlike other Finger Lakes communities, excuse me, Warsaw experiences a lot of greater regional traffic that's more of a cut through. They see this as a bit of a shortcut route to avoid some of the other highways. And so, that can be a challenge for especially those younger riders or more novice riders that would rather that they are looking to get on the bike and ride around and go to their destinations, but they just don't feel comfortable enough. And so that's bike boulevards obviously are a great tool for those cohort. So really the ultimate through the engagement process, and we developed a vision statement that really hoped to tap into the natural assets of the community, where it wants to be, where it is today, where it wants to be. And our hope throughout this whole process was to develop an actionable plan that the community can start checking off the boxes from on day one of its finalization. The recommendations ultimately boil down into several different categories: land use and regulatory, streetscaping, trails and public access routes, pedestrian facilities, bicycle facilities, some traffic operations improvements, and finally program and policy. I think the next slide. Some key recommendations that came out of this were obviously the multimodal friendly land use and zoning updates. These were spelled out very nicely in here. The team over at Ingalls Planning and Design are fantastic at this, and we've relied heavily on their expertise on this. Looking at really, I think what is one of the key elements of this plan. New trail access. Some of the challenges with the trail access that we wanted to see and the community wanted to see from more of the neighborhoods to Warsaw Falls is that it does cross over some property, private property. And so, the project, we had the ability to look at some up to a certain point of what public lands can allow for. But this project, as part of this is the follow-on of it, is that this sort of sets the stage of developing a trail access and a trail, more of a robust trail plan in the future, develop a formalized trail for people to get to that great asset. At the same time as doing that, we also heard a lot of comments about their park, about Warsaw Park, and improving access in and around it. And so this plan looked at developing, and we developed a concept parks master plan, if you will, improving circulation, parking areas. That's again another sort of a foundation that if a more robust and comprehensive parks master plan is to be developed, this really sets the stage for that. Other key recommendations, we looked at the identifying strategic locations for new street trees, new lighting program. We have a prioritized corridor, a segment list of where lighting facilities should be located. Of course, developing a more inclusive bicycle network through, as I mentioned, the bike boulevards. There's some really great slow speed, low traffic streets that can be leveraged here. And so we wanted to take advantage of that. The conversion, of course, one of the big aspects of this community is the wonderful monument that they have along Main Street. We don't have it shown here, but the intersection currently operates as a sort of it's an unsignalized intersection. It looks like a roundabout. It doesn't really act like one. To community members, they sort of know how to drive it, but to folks that are coming in and from outside the community, it might be a little less intuitive. And so we recommended that being converted to a formalized roundabout. Although there are no significant safety concerns out there today, so it doesn't quite meet the criteria to get funded by highway safety funds. It is a project that was certainly encouraged, given some support, and we'd love to see something happen there to be a little more intuitive for all's use. Streetscaping improvements, identifying perhaps some new crossing locations. The image that you're seeing here is along South Main. There's an opportunity to install curb extensions throughout the main street here, reduce crossing distances. This is an image there that shows those new curb extensions highlighted by high visibility crosswalk, as well as signage. The curb extension recommendations fed through the entire main street here, throughout the entire downtown core. And we can take advantage of the parking that's already out there, like I said, to reduce those crossing distances. We developed a programmatic and policy section as part of this, namely identifying things like developing an access management policy for some of the more suburban developed locations in the community, developing a complete streets policy, looking at maintenance, prioritizing maintenance, prioritizing snow removal, things of that nature. And then, of course, as to sort of wrap the bow on it, developing an implementation strategy that identifies various funding sources, whether it be local sources, state funding sources, federal, or even private, such as the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation, and what have you. Ultimately, we developed some cost estimates that the community can use to develop better strategy for actually getting these projects done, and prioritized. We looked at 12 different. The community identified 12 priority projects. Some of these being quick win projects, but ultimately these are projects that they can go ahead and start looking at to try to tackle first and foremost.
Okay, thank you, David. Appreciate that. So did I understand that this can be incorporated into the comprehensive plan? That's the intent, to make this a component of the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it's not a specific, the intent wasn't necessarily there, and it's not a, the outset of the project, it's not, that was not a particular aspect of it. However, with consulting with that team throughout this process, it can certainly be used as such. Typically comprehensive plans, okay, they do a small, look at for transportation, but this can be certainly a chapter or an appendix to that project.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so like a supplement to it. Good. So it'd be a resource. Good. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for David on this? Okay. Nice presentation, Dave. Thank you. That concludes the 4 presentations. So at this time, I would entertain a motion and a second to recommend these to the board.
Joel Kleinberg's motion.
I'll second.
Joel, thank you. Oh, thank you, Angela. Okay, Rich, we'll get you in the next one. Okay. Any opposition to recommending these to the board? Hearing none, they are passed. Thank you, everyone. Nice job on your presentations. Brings us up to our next agenda item, Transportation Improvement Program. And we have action concerning modifying the fiscal years 2023-2027 TIP. They're planning committee resolutions, and we have 2 actions. And as I did in the previous, I would recommend adopting both of these together. There's no opposition to that. I don't think there would be. So with that, first one is modifying phases of Route 31, 31A and Redmond Road intersection project. I think Joel can guide us through that.
Thanks, Scott. I'll advise, I just lost my Zoom connection, so I can't see what you're seeing, so I'm gonna go completely from memory. This was a detailed design and right-of-way conversation. This project was what we called seed funded, which means we funded the engineering phases with the intent to go for construction, either if grant funding became available or for the next round of the TIP. And as the project progressed, we kind of realized we funded engineering and right-of-way and realized that the right-of-way phase really shouldn't be progressed at this time because construction funds haven't been identified. When you do the right-of-way work and you get an estimate, it's only good for 12 months. And so all that work would need to be redone once construction funds are authorized. So the good news is we noticed this before funds were obligated and are able to return those to the group. It's not a lost opportunity. The second part of this request, DOT is able to deliver design approval in this federal fiscal year. But since the right-of-way, since the construction phases are not funded, there's sort of no rush. And it would help us if we could allocate those staff resources onto other projects and defer design out of federal fiscal year. So again, it's a two-part request. The right-of-way phase we really need to do, that's the right thing. And then the detailed design is more of just a request of the group with no change in the funding. Just a change in fiscal year. Any questions on that one?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay.
Then the next one is deferring the phases of the Route 19 over Black Creek Bridge replacement project. I think you can help us with that as well.
Yes, and again, I still don't have access. So memory serves, that was the detailed design phase, and that was a wetland delineation issue. That work is being conducted by a consultant on behalf of the state DOT. We budgeted the time and everything looked right, but by the time we were able to onboard the consultant, the season where you're able to do wetland delineation had passed. We lost the window of opportunity, so we now need to wait for the spring thaw. And as a result, we are requesting that the detailed design phase be moved out of this federal fiscal year into the next. Typically, we come to this group with those types of requests in July, but in this case, we know we're not going to make it and wanted to bring it to the group's attention as early as possible. So again, unlike the last one where we can make design approval, it's just a request. In this case, we know we can't make it. So we're asking again to just move the phase with no cost change out of this federal fiscal year and into the next.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions of Joel on that one as well? Nope. Hearing none. Sounds good. This is a planning committee, usually big planning committee action, so I would look for a motion and a second to move these along. Rich, can I look to you now for your motion? Thank you.
One second.
Second, thank you. Any opposition to approving these actions today? Hearing none, they're approved. Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you all.
Brings us up to our next action, and that is recommendation to the board concerning amending the federal fiscal years 2023, 2027 TIP. And Jim's gonna guide us to this one here.
Yeah, I'll weigh in, and then if I miss anything or anything needs to be corrected, if Eric Farr's still on the line, I see he's there, he can probably correct me. But basically what happened last Thursday is we were nearly ready to hit send on the meeting package. We learned the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, identified the need to realign some funding. These were projects we had in federal fiscal year 2023. people who are familiar with Federal Highway Administration projects are familiar with the term obligated. Joel referred to it a little bit. Basically, that's the action at the federal level that establishes, in essence, the checking account for a project. FTA refers this as to being put into a grant. For various reasons, these projects were not put into the grant before October 1st. But now that we're after October 1st, a new federal fiscal year, they can't put last year's funding in. So they've asked us to shift the resources. In our TIP procedures manual, because we're dealing with such large amounts on other phase, it is a board action. So the reason that the package went out Friday instead of Thursday was so we can accommodate this, because they're time sensitive. We cannot wait. The next opportunity for the board to consider them after the February meeting will be in June. And that would really put a crimp on the project sponsors to move forward. Because we do a fully integrated process with NISDOT on our TIP, I did alert Joel Kleinberg before we put this in there, let him know this was coming. But the TIP Development Committee has not seen this. So this is coming straight to the Planning Committee. I want to make that clear. There is no recommendation like you would normally see. Another aspect of Federal Transit Administration funds is they are available for multiple years. In the past, you may have heard us refer to rollover funds on FTA, and that's a recognition that sometimes, particularly when you're buying buses, you need to accumulate, a reserve. So the bottom line is that these changes moving from one federal fiscal year to another do not affect any other projects, and fiscal constraint is maintained. Because they're all essentially the same action, we did one single resolution and listed them all as items within that resolution. And on this list of the projects that are affected, projects 1 through 10 are RGRTA projects. Project 11 is with Lifespan. You've heard us talk about Here to There and the expansion of the ride mobility management package that Livingston County had developed initially, and then it's being expanded in partnership with Ontario County and Monroe County. That's what that project is. Then we've got the individual detail. Eric, is there anything from your perspective that I missed?
No, I think you did a great job of summarizing it.
And with that, I guess I'll answer any questions I can.
All right, any questions of Jim on this? Okay, I would entertain a motion and a second to recommend this to the board.
I will.
Ethan, thank you very much. Dave, all right, thank you. Appreciate that. So we have a motion and a second. Any opposition to recommending this to the board? Hearing none. Section passes. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody indulging this very late request. Again, it is time sensitive and it doesn't affect anybody else. So
no problem. Great. Thanks, Jim. Next up, we have no actions on the long range plan and no actions on the related activities. That brings us up to reports. And first up is the status of our UPWP efforts.
Okay, so starting with our strategic planning, we are coordinating with the executive committee to finalize new office space for GTC staff. We've come down to a final location and initiated the process. We'll have to go through the RGRT Board of Commissioners as the host agency for GTC to execute a lease. And we're also trying to schedule immediately following the board meeting on the 29th that executive committee members will have a chance to come see the space. Initially, the plan was to have them tour multiple spaces, but a space came available just a few weeks ago, at least through December 31st, that suits our needs very well. It's in proximity to this building. It's got a lot going for it, and also came at the lowest cost. So it was a compelling case not to need to look at the others, but we still want to give the executive committee a chance to see it before final sign off. And I'm hoping to get approval on March 14th. move forward with a lease. Long range plan, no activity as it says, the Genesee Finger Lakes scenario tool. Since the last meeting, we've had some conversations with the City of Rochester and some local foundations on a project that would look at the and assess the health impacts of the Interloop North preferred concept. You may recall a while back, we had utilized the urban footprint tool and some scenario analysis that then fed into a public health assessment model where we looked at the recommendations of the West Main Street corridor and identified how some relatively simple improvements, in that case, adding green space and tree canopy to bring the neighborhood up with the county average could have measurable differences in like hypertension and heart disease and the cost of healthcare. So the idea being, if we look at analysis of what the city is proposing to do out on Interloop North, what they're looking to add for active transportation elements, the idea of just taking a highway out of the middle of the neighborhood. So there was some movement from the community, from Hinge Neighbors, and they reached out. The Urban Design for Health is the consultant we used before. Excuse me, they have a proprietary system that has been supported by the Center for Disease Control and EPA and folks. And they've made enhancements since we last used it. So like I said, we're working with a couple local foundations to try to see what we can make happen, how we might be able to leverage funding, private funding, and partner up. So we'll see where that goes. And I imagine in the next few meetings, you'll be hearing back what can we try to do to get together, like again, as I put up there, a unique partnership. Staff technical assistance. We've gotten the data back. You may recall we were working with the town of Lyons in the former village area to look at their sidewalks and anticipation of bringing up to ADA compliance and a prioritization process. We used a new tool called Deep Walk where we scanned with the iPhone. The data had been provided back to us last week. So Charlie is now compiling a report for be able to present to the village. And the other thing we're looking to take an opportunity by coincidence, NISDOT was they have a project on Route 14 and they had done some traditional assessment of one of the first activities that the designers do is to go out to look at the sidewalk conditions of ramps and start assessing. So what we want to do is share our data with NISDOT and have them compare with, well, what came out of this scan that we did versus their traditional method, and are they telling us the same thing? Number one, which would be nice to confirm that. And then number two, is this a technique that could create efficiencies for designers and or even provide more information for the designers? Hopefully it's done at a lower cost. So we did a pilot project. We can compare it to some real collection and see where that goes. Next two projects, there's no activity report and kind of a slow time of year. So you're going to see a recurring theme. I'm not going to waste my time on those. The Finger Lakes Regional Resiliency Plan, the RFP was released on January 19th. Proposals are due March 1st. And to date, we've distributed 25 RFP packages. With regard to 2024 Eclipse planning, we had talked previously about getting information from venues, the sanctioned venues, what kind of, where they're going to be, what kind of crowd sizes, so we could do some travel demand modeling. We got very limited information. We got on the crowd size. We got a lot of locations, but of the information provided to us by late December, early January, we're only able to account for about 40,000. And we've been talking hundreds of thousands coming to visit. Since then, we've gotten a little bit more information. A couple good sized scale events, but it was not as complete as we had hoped. So we're trying to. We've discussed internally some other ideas on how to try to develop the model, you know, that such that it's useful to identify where we expect those choke points to be. One thing that we did get that was a nice affirmation. RMSC is having a large event and people are making reservations, and they collected zip code information and plotted it on a map. And we previously said we anticipate the Washington DC to Boston to be a big draw. You look at the points on the map and it's very apparent the Eastern Seaboard. Probably half of the reservations they had already in the system were coming from the Eastern Seaboard. So that was a nice affirmation. And we did learn from the data they collected and the data that SUNY Brockport collected that it was about 50-50 the reservations from area residents and out-of-town visitors. So a nice affirmation there. But those are the only ones that we were aware of that had reservations ahead of time with the zip code information. So we're hearing from the hotels that a lot of people are staying through, checking out Tuesday. That will help the traffic situation. But I know Office of Emergency Management, DOTs, the highway departments, they're anxious to get the traffic modeling, but we've had to adjust our approach a little bit and try to see if we can come up with something useful. Moving down to the Route 96 over 14 strategic investment, the consultant was working with NISDOT just with some questions and confirming the criteria of how we're going to evaluate the various recommendations, decision matrix. The needs assessment and benefit cost analysis are nearing completion. As of today, they might actually be complete. I'm not positive, but and the next steering committee meeting is anticipated in March. Moving down to the Greater Rochester Transportation Management Association feasibility study. That contract was executed. The first project advisory committee meeting is scheduled for March 5th. The regional freight plan update, the second steering committee was January 26th. We've identified various stakeholders and from the industry, and the consulting team started meeting with them this week to get the stakeholder input. Regional Trails Initiative, Charlie presented the scope earlier. That's the GTC test. I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for the GTC activities for Jim? Okay, thank you. Moving on to Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council. Rich?
So the surveys are out with the 188 municipalities across the region, and the responses to those surveys are coming in, but we're relatively early days on that.
Okay.
For the 2023 year.
And I just noticed in the name, we've got to update the calendar year 2023. Last month we did talk about the closeout, so we will fix that certainly before the next meeting.
And the last mile was
presented.
And regional alternative.
As discussed last time, we are looking at bringing on a new staff member to look at the broader sustainability type of projects we have, so that role will support this with still with that kind of idea, as we've discussed with GTC staff, of a closeout in, kind of in October of 24, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Good.
Although a little delay in getting it started, the nature of the schedule was such that we don't expect that it'll be too far delayed, and that we would actually keep the closeout the same fiscal year.
Great, okay.
That's what we're anticipating, so.
All right, thank you, Rich. Livingston County.
Now it'd be February.
That was presented earlier today.
Yep. I think we're good unless you have any questions.
Nope, I think we're on.
Not for this part of the meeting.
Brings us to Monroe County.
So I can start with the land use monitoring report. The county staff start to compiling the data for 2023, and then we will send out the survey by the end of this month.
Sorry, we had a little technical issues in the room with a low battery. So, Joe, did you catch what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and Transportation Act is accepted. Okay, so Tom, the signal preemption study.
Yeah, that
Actually, that's Joe.
Yeah, so just the consultant is working on the inventory and the best practices elements of the project, and we have our next committee meeting scheduled for March 12th at the Art Talk.
Okay. Nice location program.
No, it's me. Yeah, we have two that we're just starting. They're sequential along Dewey Avenue, so those are in the initial stages. We have 5 of them along Lyle Avenue that are basically in the second stage. They're sequential along Lyle. I don't know if it's other than that, but so basically we're gonna treat the Dewey Avenue as one, the Lyle Avenue is one, but they're all separate. Then we have 7 of the studies are actually in the next step, the 3rd step, where we actually have to go out and visit the sites, make recommendations, and we have completed 3 of them since January 6th.
Any question on the Monroe County projects? Okay, New York State DOT.
This one, GTC staff is kind of leading the effort. So our tech strategic plan is done. City of the downtown sign assessment was presented earlier. Tip best practices study. We had a January 19th due date for proposals. We did not receive any proposals on that study. Joe Mavenzi has been following up with some of the firms that requested it to see if we can gain some insights. We'll coordinate with NISDOT on a course of action going forward, and you know, we're going to have another tip cycle kicking off. So we want to decide what makes the most sense. Do we recast the RFP? Do we do something different? So
Interesting. Okay. No proposals. All right, thanks. Ontario County.
Sure, I can take that. So the steering committee commented on the inventory and analysis technical memo. There was quite a few comments on that. So I met with the consultant in Ontario County to go over that. We're also trying to schedule a in-person site tour of the Finger Lakes Railway system between the consultants, Ontario County and GTC as well, before the consultants really dive into their site selection process for rail-enabled business development along the line. And our next steering committee hopefully will be late March.
Okay, thank you, Jody. City of Rochester.
I can take a first pass at these, and Jody and Charlie can chime in if they have more current information. So I know the ADA right-of-way transition plan, that consultant selection is underway, and then we got 4 different proposals. So we're pleased with that. Joseph Avenue Art Walk Master Plan, we're just in the process of getting a consultant under contract, which should happen really in the next couple of weeks. So we're hoping to have a kickoff meeting in March. Genesee Riverway Trail Completion Study, I'll defer to either Jody or I know
Sure.
Kevin was on the phone or on the call earlier.
I can take the next 2, David. So for Riverway Trail, we received 6 proposals by the deadline. Those got sent out this week to the consultant selection committee. We're going to try to meet the week of the 26th to review those. And then for Interloop North, the RFP got released on February 9th. I've sent out 13 copies of it so far, and proposals are due March 15th.
and again, that was the scope of work that was presented in January by Silvertel. So that's moving around.
Okay. Any questions on the city projects? All right, brings us to RGRTA. Eric, hopefully can.
Sure.
Yep.
So task 8534 origin and destination study. DICA did ask for an extension on providing that draft report, so we're still waiting on that. Task 8538 service performance monitoring and refinement. We've kind of identified what the likely updates will be for next quarter, and we're working on finalizing those for our April pick. 8543 is complete. 8544, no change from our last report, so we're still just going through the draft recommendations. And then task 8553 is also complete.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Any questions? Wyoming County.
I could take that one. You may recall, this was one that, had got installed and we gave each consultant the opportunity to, basically resubmit their proposal or withdraw without prejudice. All five did submit. A preferred consultant has been identified and GTC staff is developing the contract, right now. Moving into other agencies, Arcade is done. Canal Ponds Business Park, Jody, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, so the draft report was provided to the steering committee on late January. Our meeting is actually this afternoon to go over that. So we'll see how that goes, and then we're gonna have to schedule one more public / stakeholder meeting with the Canal Ponds Business Park consortium, and then we'll wrap the project up.
West Webster Hamlet is done. Village of Fairport zoning. Joe, do you want to talk about that one?
Oh, yeah, the project is underway now and the first steering committee meeting is occurring today, actually.
Busy day. Warsaw is done. Town of Rush, the contract has been executed. We have worked with the town to identify project advisory committee members and reach out to them to ensure that they're going to participate, and the consultant is preparing for a project kickoff meeting in probably, I would hope, in March, but we don't have a timeline yet.
Okay,
And that's all of the UPWP projects.
great. Thank you. Next up is the status of the SS4A program.
All right, much more brief than last meeting. The national webinar for new awardees was held on January 23rd. They did go over the process for developing and executing an agreement. This will be a direct agreement with Federal Highway Administration and will not be like our traditional UPWP funds that go through New York State DOT. So the process is a little more involved. It sounds a bit daunting that we're going to get a template from FHWA New York division that they were going to fill out. We're going to send it back to Albany. They're going to comment, send it back to us. We're going to revise. Then we're going to send it to them, and they're going to send it to Washington for comments. And it's going to come back, and we're going to revise. And then month that is focused on this project has already started researching requirements for plans and developing the RFPs so that we can proceed as quickly as possible once the agreement is fully executed. We are even looking at potentially, once we get a comfort level, maybe the last set off to Washington for their the final signing, we can release the RFPs and get the process going a few weeks ahead of the formal agreement. Quickly after the agreement is in place as possible, because many of you that deal with construction projects, any costs incurred before the agreement is signed are not eligible for reimbursement. So we're supporting with our UPWP, but we can't get into consultant contracts ahead of time. And we're trying to identify some opportunities to alert the consultant community locally, anyways, that these opportunities will be coming because with particularly the local road safety plans, we have 10 of those that we're trying to get done. Division to the session that's specific to New York awardees. That's power.
and speakers and it keeps going back. So now it's saying you're back on echo canceling. Perfect.
Let's confirm this.
Okay, well, it's staying steady.
This is a new one. Not had this
Yeah,
one.
we've not had this
before.
before, so, we'll try to monitor. With my microphone.
Unmute.
All right, so we're using my microphone. We're muted on the other device.
Yeah.
Ain't the power plug. All right, apologies to those online. We're switching microphones in here. Something's getting a little weird. In many years of having that product, this is the first time it's happened. So, on the screens, the recap of the tips staff modification support that was included in the meeting folder.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Federal legislative and funding update.
Okay, federal budget, Congress still has not passed the full appropriations. On January 18th, Congress passed, and on January 19th, the president signed a third continuing resolution that continues funding for Department of Transportation and a few others through March 1st. So in 2 weeks, we'll be wondering what Congress is doing again. At some point, maybe they'll just say, you know what, we're getting into election season, let's just fund it through September 30th. We don't know. And then for the funding update, moving into the discretionary grant opportunities, the RAISE program was released on November 30th with applications due February 28th. I'm not aware of anybody in our region pursuing RAISE grants this cycle. I don't know if Joel or anybody at DOT is aware, or if anybody in the room is aware. I did have somebody from Senator Schumer's office reach out, say, hey, if you know about any, you can give them some support, but I'm not aware of any.
Me neither, Jim.
Yeah. And then moving into some newer opportunities. So a couple FTA grants that open on February 8th, bus facilities, no emissions buses with application to April 25th. I know this is something that RGRTA always looks at, so I imagine Eric is already investigating that. Another round of Safe Streets and Roads for All is expected to be announced in February. Hopefully, I know the city has had their debrief with where they didn't get funded on the implementation. I don't know if they'll be in position to pursue again in February. We certainly don't need planning activities. The hard part is having implementation without those local road safety plans. So I don't know if we're going to have any applications from our region this cycle. If there's anything we could do for offer support type letters, let us know. Congestion relief program, the discretionary aspect of it's coming out in February. Last year they limited the discretionary to states. I don't know what they're going to do this year, but it's something to keep an eye out. And then moving into some rail infrastructure coming in March, active transportation coming in March, again, some implementation funds, and thriving communities sometimes in the spring, large projects in the summertime, moving quite a few summertime. So perhaps by the April meeting, I'll be able to put some specific dates on these, or at least more than a season. Again, the chart has offered up a lot of information, at least timeline for 2024. So you can start to see charging and fuel and infrastructure, electric vehicle, resiliency, and another round of raise coming in the fall. So we will continue to update these each meeting as more specific information becomes available. And again, the resources page, that first link there, the key notices of funding opportunity, get that information. USDOT is doing a great job of keeping that up to date. The DOT Navigator can help find potential fund sources. The discretionary grant preparation checklist helps applicants navigate the process. And again, a concerted effort for funding for rural areas. So there's a dedicated portal for rural opportunities. Any questions on the federal funding? I don't have anything to raise.
And public engagement highlights.
Our big thing was the public, the UPWP public review. So again, it's sort of a quiet time of year. We know coming up, we're trying to help amplify the city's Bull's Head revitalization meeting on February 27th. Again, as we say, you have meetings going on that we can help amplify your message. Please get that information to Lori. Don't know if there's anything highlights that we're missing that anybody wants to mention. Okay.
Member agency and other partner updates. Any agency have any information to share? Okay. On to new business.
I don't have anything to bring to the table.
Okay.
Jim, I'm sorry, I it was difficult to hear Scott. So under the last slide, I will bring to the group that the Bridge New York program, the latest round is progressing. So as a reminder for the group, our region gets roughly $29 million of additional funding. It's a mix of federal and New York State aid to put money in the hands of local governments. NYSDOT is not eligible for this fund source.
Here, 50 West Main Street at City Place.
So
offering hybrid.
Right, hybrid. And any materials for that meeting are asked to be submitted to GTC staff no later than Friday, March 29th. So.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and